All right, everybody. I am super excited to bring you the amazing Sue Bursic. Sue, am I saying that right? First of all, I'm going to ask you. It's
I like
Bursic.
to sometimes, but I usually go by Susan.
Susan Bursic. Awesome. So I am bringing you guys today a really special guest. Sue and I actually met for the first time a couple weeks ago when we were both speaking at the same event for one of your network marketing teams, I think it was. And I was invited to speak, which was such an honor and a pleasure. And I had so much fun. And I got to meet you. I feel like I've known you because we're on the socials and we know the same people. We kind of run the same circles, but we've never physically met. So I was so happy when we actually got the opportunity to do that at that training day. And listening to you speak, I just wanted to share you with our audience here today because you just have such an amazing vibe about you. You're very I want to say you've got this calmness about you, which I love because I think I'm super hyper. So maybe it's why I'm attracted because it's like I'm this way and you're that way and we kind of yin and yang. But I loved the way you trained and what you spoke about. And I just knew that the audience had to hear from you today. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much. I'm totally excited to share space with you. And I totally felt the same way. Like when you connect with people that you feel like are on a similar journey to you on social media. And so when, Lisa and Jerry from my team said that you were speaking, I was super excited to get the real deal experience. And when you were up there talking, I'm like, yes, everything was like, this girl speaks my language. She has the same passion for this industry that I do. And it's just awesome to find those nuggets in this, vast space of people that are really, really passionate about what they do. So
yeah, it's so cool to see. I love those kind of events because we're all like the same but different. We all have the same goals. We're all excited about this business and we're all passionate about sharing it. And it doesn't matter whether we're in the same company or not. We all love each other. And that's the best thing about this industry. I love that. So you guys, Susan, I want to call you Sue because I know a few Sues, but Susan is a mom of two boys. And actually we were supposed to do this yesterday, but one of your little guys, he needed a mommy day. So we moved it, which is totally cool because I get all that stuff. I have two boys myself. She lives in Dorchester, Ontario. She's a top, I'm not just top leader in her network marketing business. She's one of the Canadian founders in her company, you guys. I cannot wait to hear a little bit more about that. She lives her life with the glass half full, which I love that. We want to rub that off onto our community. And she's driven by helping women utilize their existing skills in their network marketing opportunities. So I want to touch back on that. But I love starting these chats by hearing what was life like before network marketing and how did you get introduced to it and what was all the stuff? Because, we all got this stuff. When we hear about network marketing for the first time, we're like, okay. So let's just start there. I'd love to hear that.
That sounds good. You know what? I actually grew up around network marketing, although I didn't realize it at the time. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and it's funny because it's taken me becoming an adult myself to realize that I still always looked at her as mom first, right? But she did, a few different network marketing jobs while I was growing up, and I would always, see her either sharing products or educating or having, things that she was packaging up and sending out to other people. And I, really had no idea that it was an industry. It was just something that my mom did. And when I graduated from high school, I came here to London and took fashion merchandising at Fanshawe College, and really felt like I loved kind of the idea of business and fashion. And so that program was really appealing to me. I had kind of always envisioned myself growing up and being a teacher, and then just kind of got steered in a different direction and came down and took that program and started working at the Gap. So I was just, I was 19. I was living on my own for the first time. I had worked retail jobs when I was in high school and wanted to kind of continue that because it was what was familiar to me, and started working at the Gap. And when I finished my program at Fanshawe, I was hired on as a manager and spent 5 years with the company and really got a taste for what it kind of felt like to be sort of in the game of business and leading people. And sourcing out talent and finding people that are the right fit for the job, and had a lot of really great leadership poured into me at a very young age. And then after about 5 years, I kind of followed one of my most influential managers to a new company, and I joined American Eagle from that point.
Mm-hmm.
Stayed there pretty much up until I had my first son. So for 8 or 9 years, I was in a management role. I was, managing different stores and going out and training in different areas and recruiting and all of that, and really truly loved what I did. There's something to say for having a same schedule from week to week versus a schedule that's all over the place. And that's what retail is, right? Your weekends, your holidays, like literally when I look back now at being a parent, it's like the busiest times of family is when it's busy in retail as well. But I loved that. I loved having, that varying schedule and managing teams and bringing great people together. And then when I had my first son he was born in 2012, I really spent that maternity leave year in a real place of like fear. And, it was the first time I ever kind of took my own health and well-being, or like, I was like, oh my gosh, I just all of a sudden felt like, wow, I have a lot to live for right now. And just experienced a lot of dread at the thought of going back to that crazy schedule, and how was I going to make that work when really my mama heart had just exploded and that I wanted to just be home, right? I was still very interested in creating a source of income to come into our house. I didn't want to give that power. I still wanted to contribute. So I just remember spending a lot of nights rocking him in a state of like worry and unknown. And so, my husband and I kind of talked through some different scenarios, and we agreed that, okay, I wouldn't go back to that work full time, but let's figure something out. You've got to have some income to be able to bring into the home. And at that time I was kind of dabbling in an experience with a network marketing company with my mom, more so because I just loved this like newfound industry of women who were, creating things on their term, rising up with their gifts. I had never heard the term personal development before, or creating whatever you want on your terms, but it was like that answer that I had kind of spent that maternity leave like searching for was starting to be evident within network marketing. And so it was, that experience wasn't necessarily the right fit. I didn't have that like aha moment as to how it all really works, but I was fell super in love with the model, right? And so anyways, during that time when I decided that we would stay home, we had recently moved to Dorchester. My little guy, I think he was about 1.5 years, and that old dream of wanting to be a teacher was kind of playing back. And I thought, I think it would be the time for me to open up a home daycare. I can, utilize my love for little ones, my desire to teach and kind of care for people. And we had a space that would kind of be conducive to that. So I opened that and, loved my days of just feeling like I could provide some financial support to my family, but be home, not having to leave the house every day, disconnect from him. But around that same time was also when my current network marketing company fell into my lap. So from like a business standpoint, I wasn't necessarily out searching for an answer. I thought I had kind of solved that for my family with having the home daycare. But I also had this real pull to my upline who had introduced me. I had been taking, throughout my maternity leave, I'd been taking a lot of her wellness programs and really just kind of up-leveling my own health and wellness, like bite-sized pieces, right? Which was really attractive to me to feel like I don't have to overhaul and become this like new person all at once, but it's about layering in those habits that can be sustained. And so there was something that was just, pulling me to say yes to whatever it was she was offering. And of course, like the products that we used were a no-brainer. I was like, well, this makes sense. This is just the next piece of the wellness puzzle. I would need this tool in my life anyways, but because I had already developed such a love for the business model, I was like, okay, I can see where this can work. And really that was kind of when the lights went off for me, that this is something that I can take all my previous skills and experiences and make work in this business with the consistency and the small pockets of time. And so, I don't even think I finished a full year of having the home daycare because I started to realize that there was enough momentum happening. At the time I was using nap time and early mornings, and after all the spaces and places, the nighttime, right? You're just excited, you're fired up. So you sacrifice sleep to get out there and share and learn. And so that was starting to pick up enough momentum that I had this moment where I'm like, okay, there's no extra time left in my day to give to my network marketing business. I feel really confident that if I say no to the home daycare, you know, in the next couple of months, that what the time that I'm going to free up from that is going to continue to fuel my business that I've been building in the small pockets of my day.
Mm-hmm.
And so did that and have never looked back.
I love it. I love it. And you brought, like, I wrote so many notes in there because there's so many things that I want to just kind of take apart in what you were sharing there. And the first one being like, I'm a big advocate that, you know, in this industry, you may not find your first company may not be always the one that you know, just because you signed up and it's like, one second. That, you know, when people start this business and they, you know, because a lot of times, you know, when you start the business, like you become a lifer, it's like you're so excited about your product and you're in and you're all these things, but sometimes that isn't the right thing, right? Like it might not be the right product. It might not be the right system. It might not be something. And then we feel guilty about wanting to leave or make a change or a shift. But, you know, in your instance, like you recognize that and you made the shift, right? And how was that experience for you when you did that?
Yeah, I remember holding some guilt, right? Because there was literally nothing wrong with the products, nothing wrong with the people. It just came down to feeling a little bit more authentic in one space than the other. And I just tried to honor and follow that.
Yeah. And I think that's important to talk about because that's the thing. I think there's a bit of that, like, oh, if you leave, you know, shame on you for leaving and all that stuff. But we have to, as network marketers, you know, have an understanding that what we do might not be a fit for everybody. And there might be something else that could better obviously benefit somebody in a different way. And you finding this new company, obviously you flourished there and it was more in an alignment for you, which is important to be able to recognize, I think. And, you know that if you're feeling that in your business and you're feeling that maybe this isn't working, but you're scared to make the transition, know that it's okay, you know? Yeah. Right? Because your success today is because you recognize that and took the chance and made the switch. So absolutely. I love that. And you know, building this business while you're on maternity leave, like girlfriend, I'm with you on that. I started when my little guy was 4.5 weeks old. Mm-hmm. And talk about the sacrifices. Like what were some of the sacrifices that you had to make in that time? Because it's so important for people to understand that you do have to sacrifice to make this work. So let's chat about that.
Yeah, I was more building like during my second maternity leave, which is such, I really look back and it's the whole experience of mat leave for both is so polarizing because that first one was really felt, like I said, in a space of fear and unknown and feeling like I just didn't have the answers versus having a maternity leave where I was in the middle of building something. I had no time to spend worrying, right? My time rocking my baby was when I was posting or catching up on messages, you know, nursing in the middle of the night, you're getting back to people that you couldn't answer during the day. Yeah. So I really have so many cool memories about the early days of my business anchored in to that first maternity leave. Like, yes, in a way it's a blur, but I took him to every event. Like he hopped on planes with me all over the place because again, network marketing is like one of those few experiences for women where it is all about nurturing the motherhood role and the business, which is like, what a gift, right? To have that, because I think that year off, like, you know, for our listeners in Canada, it's a year and in other places it's not. And like, you know, there's no magic amount of time, but at least in Canada, we have the ability to get our thoughts together around this new role and how we're pulled in different directions. So I just think, you know, for people that are at home that have that desire to want to start to plant seeds in that first year, it's a great opportunity, right? Because you're in your home and nesting and take caring of thoughts are very easily put into a business if you want to be able to capitalize on that extra time that you have. Yeah.
And that's how I saw it too. I was kind of like, you know, I have this year. I can sit back and eat bonbons and take care of my baby and just chill, or I can like get busy and make this work, because I always say, like, I sacrificed a lot in my first year. You know, there were times where I wasn't there to put, I had 3 kids at the time, but my youngest was 4.5 weeks old, like to put them to bed. I left, I had to go to my conference that was 3-4 days away, and my youngest was only 4 months old. Those were things that I had to sacrifice, but I got it all back by building a business strong enough that I didn't have to go back to my full-time career as much as, you said you were able to shut down the daycare and just do that. And now my kids have me all the time. Like, so in this business, we do have to recognize that there has to sometimes be sacrifices made in order to build, a big, strong, stable organization. Absolutely. And to let go of the mom guilt, right? Because your kids don't remember any of the stuff. My kids don't remember me not tucking them in or doing the things or reading the books. Yeah. But they remember the trips that I get to take them on now. They remember me picking them up from school, right?
Absolutely.
So it's worth it. I hate the mom guilt thing. So it is a good time to take advantage of that and to really work. And like, there were times where I remember, like, there's dishes in the sink, laundry piled up, and I've got one like on my arm, breastfeeding, and I'm typing messages with one finger, trying to get stuff out. Right. Cause that was just the time I had, and we had to do it, but it was so worth it. It was so worth it. One of the other things you mentioned too, and I think this is so important, when you were looking at the, shutting down of the daycare, you had that decision to make. Like, I love how you mentioned that, you just decided that you knew that if you did this, it was going to be okay. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know there's people out there listening to this who do work full time. They're kind of attached to that income. They're a bit afraid to kind of take the leap and really, go all into their network marketing business. So can you share a little bit about what you went through in that time of shutting that down and how that felt?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really relatable topic for a lot of people, right? They want to experience this different lifestyle, but we all need our bills paid, right? We all need to know that the finances are covered. And this is why I think that people need to know that a network marketing business that is going to pay you or match you your full-time income, it doesn't happen overnight. It's generally not something that people can quit their job after a year, we're both a case where we can teach people, it's possible.
Yeah.
But this is where like the belief has to have been super locked in at the beginning. I talk a lot with my team about really looking to kind of seal up any gaps of doubt that you have in your business, right? Because you need everybody on board with this business plan. I can remember having, team meetings where the topic would come up that they don't have the support at home, and, they feel that sense of the dishes are piling up, the laundry's piling up. And although you feel like those are still important jobs, they're not necessarily the jobs that are moving your business forward. Right. And like 9 times out of 10, when I ask, like, have you ever really sat down with your husband and said, like, I'm doing a business here. Like, this is what I want. This is, I actually need to be out of the house a couple nights a week. And a lot of times they were like, no, I've never really said that. Right. Yeah. So if you've got any gaps or any areas of weakness in your belief system or having everybody on board, network marketing is the easiest thing to go first, right? It's the you're not necessarily getting paid an hourly wage. Well, you're not getting paid an hourly wage, and nobody's going to fire you for not showing up for 2 weeks. People have to realize it's going to take you that much longer to reach the point where you feel like you have that freedom or security within what your business is generating to say goodbye to the part-time job or the full-time job. And oftentimes the spouse, that's what they need to see, right? They're not necessarily going to understand the ins and outs of the people that you're developing and the time that it takes to nurture people, and that there's, really, I feel like in this industry, all we have 100% certainty over is our products, right? Yeah. That those are solid, but with people, like, we're leading a bunch of volunteers, right?
It's like herding cats some days.
You have no certainty that the people on your team are going to show up every day, right? So there's that risk. So that's where you, as the leader of your life and the leader of your business journey, you have to be the one that's like 100% unshakable in what you're doing, because the bulk of your team needs that from you. They're wavering. They'll keep taking those baby steps behind you. And that's essentially what ends up, holding an organization together, is having that person who is like, I believe in it. I believe in it. And if you feel like the person who led you is believing in it, it helps to build your belief as well. So that was kind of a rant, but yeah, when it comes to making that decision of stepping away, you've really got to take a solid look at how much you believe in yourself, that if that solid income is done and you're going to say goodbye to it, you have enough belief in yourself to others
that you can pull it off, right? And I believe that in the power of decision, and this was something I talked about in that session we did together, but when you make a decision in your heart and you know without a doubt that this is what you're doing and you're going to make it work no matter what, when you make that kind of decision, and that's not just words, that's a feeling. Like when you made that decision to shut down the daycare, when I made the decision to leave my full-time graphic design career, and yes, it was scary, but in the same breath, I also knew that I was going to do it. I knew I was going to do it. I had no idea how it was going to look. I didn't know what the outcome was really going to be. But like you said, I believed that I could. And there was evidence all around me that it worked. So I knew that if they could, I could. And I was like, you have to take that leap of faith in order for things to actually come together.
And you probably felt similar to I did, that I had more excitement than I did moments of worry or fear. I was like, okay, I'm free. I can really go at this, you know, instead of feeling like, oh man, like the security's gone. Like, I think when you're leading up to that decision, you should know that the moment it's done, that the excitement is going to be like off the charts.
Yeah. And it does, it opens you up. It opens up your brain space, you know, to some degree, where you can stop worrying and thinking about should I or shouldn't I. You know, indecision is the one thing that will, like, it makes you feel out of sorts. You can't think a solid thought when you're in indecision. Once you make the decision, it's like that thing comes off your back and your wings come out and you go, right? So I love that. And it's so true. So, and I love how you talked about the gaps of doubt. Like those are so important, because like those things that we, you know, like the talking to your husband and letting your family be a part of the business, like, you know, bringing them into the picture and having everybody understand what we're working towards, and the vision, like getting your family on board with the vision, like me not doing the dishes and me not doing the laundry is because I'm building something that's going to allow our family, you know, do X, Y, and Z, or bring daddy home, or go on that vacation together every single year. Like pull them into the vision so that they understand, and maybe, you know, they'll be helping out a little bit more because they know why mommy's out tonight. You know, so in having those big conversations, I love that. I want to talk about leadership, because you mentioned leadership as part of your role before network marketing, and now that you're in network marketing, let's talk about what it really means to be a leader. Because I think some people get scared about becoming leaders because they don't know exactly what that is going to require of them. And I think that it's an important topic, because even if you're a team of one, you're still leading. You're still leading yourself, right? And so let's talk about that. So what are some of the things that, when you think of leader, what comes up for you?
Yeah, you know what? I love what you just said about leading yourself. And I think I just kind of had a new aha moment around that this is actually a business or an experience that really does well for people that are leading themselves first, right? Whether that is really taking care of yourself mentally or physically or spiritually, knowing that you're filled up so that you have something to pour into others. I think we all need to start there. But you're right. I talk a lot about people getting really uncomfortable with the leadership title because they're like, well, geez, I've never led anybody. But I really think that, like, no matter what people do, whether you are an employee or you look after a family member, there is something that you do in your daily life that is a leadership role, you know, and there's so many things that translate if we actually kind of dissected it and looked at it in that way, is like, you know, who do you take care of? Who do you show up and check on? Or who, you know, teachers, like all these people that have, whether it's customer service or healthcare or teaching and education, like we may not look at it as leadership, but we're showing up and providing value and service and care. And that's really what we all do in this business model as well. But I think the piece about like leading yourself first is so key, because this isn't the experience where somebody's going to say, hey, you didn't clock in at 8 o'clock, or you didn't ask for the time off. You have to have a lot of awareness around in your best space as well. And I actually just said to my team a couple weeks ago, I said, you know, guys, like if you ever notice that there's like a huge gap of time where I haven't popped on and done like a Facebook Live or something, you would probably assume that I haven't been taking great care of myself, not leading myself first with the health and wellness. And so when you don't feel vibrant, there's no way that you're going to pour into others in the best way possible, right?
So true.
This is just one of those really cool things that this business will pay you to continue to put yourself first. And again, that's another like whole topic that you could dive into around women and us not generally putting ourselves first, right?
Well, and it goes back to a lot of the things like the mom guilt and all those things. Like, you know, we all of a sudden become parents and we think that everything has to revolve around our children all the time. And I personally don't believe that it's good for your kids to not see you take care of yourself and sometimes have to put up boundaries and, you know, be able to say, no, honey, I can't go to that thing tonight because mommy has to go and do this, you know, because it's for whatever, the business, the family, the whatever. Right. So I think it's like, I always call it the oxygen mask theory. You know, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can put it on your children, you know? And so it's the same thing with self-care, same thing for your business, same thing for all that stuff. And I want to talk about that, the self piece, because it sounds like that's an important thing for you. And I want to go back to that in a second. But the other thing with leadership, like, I think sometimes when people hear like, you know, the leadership titles or becoming a leader, you know, they think of like, all of a sudden I have to manage everybody. I'm gonna have to like put schedules together and I got to manage the calls and I got to do all this kind of like work stuff. But really what being a leader is one, being a good person, you know, being positive. Like, it doesn't always mean you all of a sudden have new responsibilities because you're a leader. It just means it's that people are watching you. So just, you know, do a good job of being a good person. That's part of being a leader, is just, you know, going first, you know, taking risks, showing your team that, like, you're showing up, and just even showing up, being on the calls, going to the meetings, like, that's part of being a leader. Right. So I think sometimes, you know, people, they may get afraid to promote within their company because they're afraid if they get that leadership title, all of a sudden it's going to be new responsibilities for them. But really, it's just the same at the top of the company and at the very start levels. We all do the same work. We're all doing the same stuff. It's just the higher you go, the more people who are watching you. So you just need to show up and do the right things. Right.
And a lot of times the leadership is really just sharing every time you've learned something, right?
Yes.
Like people that go to the events or watch the webinars or watch the trainings or listen to the podcasts and do nothing with the information, that's leaving a whole gap of leadership opportunity, right? I teach within my team that, like, you don't have to have it all figured out, but gosh, if you've just listened to something good that lit a light bulb, you share that, you put that out. And that's where the actual leadership starts, is you giving what you're learning. It doesn't have to be like the rocket science or the beautifully thought out quote. It's just, hey, we just had this like aha moment, and this is where it's kind of playing in my business right now. Just sharing that, right?
Just being able to step up and share what you've learned. You always are learning to teach. Always, you know, like, that's the thing, learning to teach, learning to be able to, and that's how you know you really got something, is when you've been able to teach it to somebody else, right? When you learn something and then you can share it and teach it to somebody else, that's how you know it's in here. It's in your head. You've got it. I love that. Leadership is such an important topic because, you know, like I say, we all enter into the network marketing and we don't have a boss. We don't have somebody who's telling us what to do. And so we have to literally step into a leadership role, like right in the very beginning, because nobody is, I mean, there are people who are helping you, you know, in your business, and they're leading you, but at the end of the day, you know, you are the one who has to basically lead yourself. I love it. So speaking of, you know, just a day-to-day, like staying organized, because obviously you have a huge team and you've been building this for how many years exactly?
Almost 5.
5 years. So you've built up a huge team. So what are some of your top tips for staying organized with, you know, all of the things that we just talked about? Because, you know, we do have to do the calls, we do have to do the trainings, we do have to do all the stuff. So what are some of the things that you do? Maybe it's tech tools, maybe it's software, maybe it's just routine stuff. Like, how do you keep on top of all of this stuff?
Yeah. I am definitely not the queen of organized, so I can tell you how I make it work.
Good to hear that, because neither am I.
I am very much I don't want to say fly by the seat of my pants, but I'm very much I will give you my best and show up in my best when it's like the moment is there. I get really uncomfortable with a highly controlled schedule, and I have dabbled in and out of all kinds of different ways to try and serve my team. You know, you go through those early stages where it's like the back and forth messaging of like, can you meet now? Can you talk now? How about this? How about that? Right? And that starts to feel stressful. So then I've used tools like your Calendly. I've used one called Schedule Once. And that was for a certain season in my business where I was kind of mentoring a lot of different people. But then I kind of found like, gosh, I hated opening up my calendar and seeing where other people have kind of dictated where I need to be.
Yes.
So I'm maybe at like I guess you kind of connect with what I'm saying, but I don't know if it's not common in this business, because you tend to always like admire the people that have it all figured out and are very structured.
Well, and it's perception too, right? Because I look at you and go like, holy crap, I would have thought you were the most organized, like, you know, person, right? Just because the perception, right? But it's very refreshing to know that you don't feel that you are, because I know that's something I struggle with too.
Yeah. And really, I think it's like, you just need to let go of what, like the shoulds, right? And you think about, okay, do I serve best when I can pop up randomly and do a call with my team where I can't always schedule out when I'm going to feel super vibrant and super inspired. Like that's more by the seat of my pants. But this fall, I did start kind of dabbling with a more structured schedule, because I thought, like, as your teams grow, you realize that sort of you're needing to reach different levels of people and serve them in different ways.
Yes.
I kind of look at my role now as just sort of filling in the gaps where I maybe have teams or leaders growing where they're maybe under somebody who's not confident enough yet to lead a call.
Yeah.
And I hate seeing or hate feeling like people are slipping through the cracks.
Yes.
Haven't like connected with that person who just speaks the language that they need. So I sort of have a calendar out where I do a once a month biz opportunity call. So that's for me to be able to offer out, to anybody new that I'm connecting with, but it also allows people on my team who aren't comfortable enough yet to talk about the business opportunity to plug them into something at least once a month.
Love that.
I do a launch your biz call as well, again, for my own personal enrollments, but for anybody who's not comfortable launching it there. And then I try and cater with like an open team call to my general team where it's just about the basics of, the very basic things about staying engaged in your business. And then what I'm going to be doing going forward to serve my higher level leaders is partnering up with another cross-line leader who has a different story, a different spin, because I love learning from people, right?
For sure.
It's such a cool industry where we can tap into anybody's magic, so much stuff is accessible. So just at a point now where I'm kind of starting to leverage some cross-line relationships to have them pour into some of my higher level leaders who maybe just need to hear it a different way or to feel inspired by somebody new.
I love that. And also, I'm a big fan of masterminds too. So it's like, for me, it's like I take my leaders that are in my central organization, and we've just actually, this is new for us, but because of the work that I'm doing in my own mastermind and seeing the results I'm getting with my own mastermind, is that my leaders and we need to be in a mastermind where we get on a call, we share, our win, we're sharing what we're working on, and then ideas for how we can, make this incentive or that incentive or whatever the company's doing, how can we maximize it for our teams and all that kind of stuff. And there's so much power in getting multiple brains together in a call and just having that time to just brainstorm. And we're all equals. Like, just because my level's higher than their level, it doesn't mean I know more, whatever. We all share ideas, and it's so great. And it allows the leaders to like rise up, right? And when their ideas are, like, wow, that's a really great idea, we should implement that. They start to feel more like the leader, right? Because they're being heard and the suggestions are being used. So those are great things. And it also, those calls that you're doing, filling in those gaps, also is a great way to make sure that the duplication of the system is happening down deep. Because I'm sure, as you've noticed, sometimes you get deep into an organization, you're like, you guys are doing what? How did that happen?
Yeah.
Who made up that?
Yeah, for sure.
some of those fun things. Okay. So I want to just ask you too, because you mentioned the word seasons and I love this. I actually did a podcast about this a while ago about the seasons in our business. Now, can you share a little bit about maybe a season in your business that wasn't so great and how did you come through that? Is there a time that you can remember that maybe you were struggling a little and how did that come about?
Yeah, I was chatting with another Crossline friend last week too about especially when you've been doing it for a few years, you start to kind of catch, right, that there's seasons or
there's waves.
Yeah, but there can be stretches and stretches of months where it's just very monotonous, right? There's not, maybe it's a gap between events or things that are really exciting promotion wise, and this is where you really know whether somebody's truly been doing the work or not, because in these months it's easy if you're not somebody who can be disciplined enough to still keep doing the little things. This is where over a few years you can look back and realize maybe why somebody's not growing or not advancing, because there are lots of very plain Jane unmomentous times in our business, right? If you're not able to fill up what you need to keep yourself inspired, it's easy to check out, right? So I kind of look back at my last 2 years where I've hit different stages in my business where like things came together, but then there's a whole lot of boring that needs to happen just to keep maintaining what's going on, right? It's not the glamorous stuff. So I kind of look at those seasons where it's really easy to say to yourself in your head, like, gosh, is anything even happening anymore? Like I'm just things are sustaining, which is what we always hope and pray for in this business. But gosh, I feel like I'm not growing. And then all of a sudden, after those like 4 or 5 quiet months, you're like, oh, somebody new pops up and you've popped up. And now I'm in this new season where I'm like nurturing some people who are excited about the business again.
Momentum kicks in.
And then they're good. And then your head goes back down and it gets boring and quiet again. And I kind of have just realized now that like, even though those are not the months where there's lots of celebrating and growth going on, they're so crucial to your business in order to have those months where all of a sudden there is momentum. You are in a place where you're like, yep, I'm ready to help you take this wherever you want. So
I agree, like the cycles that happen in this business, and it pains me to see people who quit in the cycles of downtime, because those are going to happen in anything you do, right? Like my husband is a business owner and he has cycles where things are busy and things are not busy. And like, that's always going to be there. And so like you say, it's learning how to master the mundane in those times where things are quiet and continuing to keep pushing and continuing to keep asking and continuing to keep hearing no's and continuing to keep going until the next wave. And I know for me, I started my business on a wave, like it went on a wave, and then it's taken some time to come down. And the thing is you can't teach somebody else how to go through something like that unless you've been through it yourself, right? So they're all learning pieces of the pie. Not always fun ones, but that's the thing. It's not always that way. And it's the ones who persevere through those downtimes. I think every time you go down, the reward on the other side is even higher. And every time you go and it keeps going, right? And that's the thing. I've looked at, we've had trainings where people have shown us the dots of their business, right, on the months. And when you look at the chart, the graph, it's lots of ups and downs. But when you zoom out on the graph, even with all those ups and downs, it's still doing a steady climb up, right? And so sometimes in those down dips, you think, oh my gosh, like, would you still stay if your business lost $100,000 in, a couple months? And people are like, oh my God, no, I'd be out of there. But then when you look, 4 months later, they're in the $1 million mark, right? Like, so it's just all part of the process. And I think the point of this is, if you're listening, is just don't quit. Don't give up in the times when things get quiet, because sometimes we appreciate those quiet times just because we need to like reset and refocus ourselves, right?
Yeah. And that's a good point. Those are just as important to sometimes take those dips for yourself, right? Like I felt like this was the first summer where I really felt okay enough to step away from really being involved in my business and got really present with my kids. And it's funny because I share through rank recognition on my team and new builders, the 4-year career, right? And it was really like I had this aha moment that I'm like, that's a real thing, Those first 4 summers, I didn't step away enough
Yeah.
or, I stayed really, really into my business and of course had the guilt, like, oh my God, summer's gone. I didn't do enough stuff. I wasn't in the backyard enough.
Yeah.
But this summer I felt like I had not earned, but just that there was enough where I could check in and out in a way that still maintained, and I knew how to show up with enough impact on the days that it counted.
Yeah.
To see really that staying committed to those hills and valleys, when you look at them over the course of 4 or 5 years, that they really do paint that solid climb to a place where a business continues to generate for you and give have those summers with your kids. And
that's why we're doing this, is so that we can have summers where we can step away a bit with our children or our families or travel or do the things. And so it's funny because we get the mom guilt when we're working on our business and not being with our kids, but then we get the business guilt when we're like taking the time away to be with, but that's what we're working for. So don't feel guilty. Like, it's like, enjoy that time and be grateful that you built your business enough so that if something, you didn't want to work for the month so you could, spend time with your family. Like, that's why we're here, folks, Yeah. So, and that's amazing. And it's good to recognize that. And that brings us back to, we'll talk about self-care. And then I've got one last question for you, because I know I've taken up a lot of your time. You've given us so many great value nuggets in this conversation, but let's talk a little bit about self-care, because this is a business where you can grind yourself, out of commission. I think sometimes we can get, going. And I think that's great. But if you don't take time to stop and recharge yourself. So what are some of your favorite ways to recharge and take that time?
My best way that I need to do, I would say probably every 2 months or so, is a full day away from my family. Shopping is my thing, and I love to do it on my own. So when
I'm with you.
So when I'm feeling really spread thin, or like I just can't, too many thoughts, too many things in my head, I will check out for a day and head to Toronto and, literally cruise them all sometimes for 8 hours and have a meal by myself and listen to an audiobook on the way down and on the way back. And I feel completely filled up, and then I'm inspired to go again. It doesn't take me long. It's not like I need a week-long vacation. I just have learned to recognize that, okay, I need a day completely by myself.
Oh, I love that.
And I've even kind of started to clue into that too with my business. If I'm feeling really creatively blocked, I was asked to speak last spring to kind of my peer group and above, which was for like, oh my God, what can I possibly tell or teach these people that are where I want to be, and that was something that was kind of not like self-care in the way we think of it, but I thought sitting down at my same kitchen table or my same desk, it was like the dead of winter, looking at the same blah, gray day. Yeah, I was just, I think, so creatively blocked. And again, I said to my husband, I'm like, I have to get out of the house. I'm going to book myself a room in Toronto. I'm going to do my shopping day. I'm going to get myself back into a place. And then I'm going to sit in my hotel room and bang out all the creativeness that comes back to me. So I think it's about recognizing in your business when you're feeling stale or when you're feeling uninspired, really kind of just looking around at your environment and saying gosh, I need to go and be in a coffee shop today, or I need to do whatever it is that fills you back up and just gives you that feeling okay, I'm not so high strung right now.
Yeah.
So it's just training your brain to know when you're headed down that road, because when you're in that crunch or that pinch of,
or that burnout,
nothing's going to flow forward. So honor that and check out for whatever amount of time that you need. And again, sometimes that's an investment back into your business. Yeah, sure, it cost me, either the gas or the train ticket or the hotel room or that, splurge I needed to make. But if I felt really good after and I was like, okay, let's do this, then that's an investment that continues to move me forward. So
I love that. And have those, again, with that kind of stuff, because I know some people might be listening going, yeah, that's great and everything, but my husband's going to be like, you're doing what? Well, again, have those conversations this is if when I do these things, it helps me build my business bigger, right? So I just need to have that time. And maybe it's not going to Toronto, but maybe it's going, like you said, to a coffee shop for a couple hours, or going to dinner by yourself, and just, whatever it is that you need to do, just have the conversation around why you need to have to do this. Don't just say, I need to go to Toronto shopping for the day. Because they're going to be like, what?
Yeah, definitely doesn't get proposed that way.
Right? Like you got to explain the why. I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to I'm going to take that tip, and I am going to do the Toronto day. I think that sounds amazing, and just, totally re-energize myself and do a little shopping. I know for me, like even just on a weekly basis is like one night a week minimum. I have to just shut the bathroom door, fill up the bathtub, throw on the meditation music, light a candle, throw in some, some smelly stuff into the bath, and just not think or do anything for an hour, and just like zone out. And that's like my reset button.
Yeah.
Meditation something too, but I got to get better with that.
Me too. But the self-care, I don't know. I think that's like absolutely any investment you make in your business, whether you're investing to go to an event or investing on a program or a training, it's the commitment of what you're going to do with it after, right? Like a day off or a day at the spa or going for a pedicure is all great and dandy. But if you're going to go home and not jump into your business and do the things you need to do, then it's not an investment that was necessarily wise for your business.
Yeah. You have to,
but not if it doesn't pour some energy into where you need to serve, then.
Yeah. And for some people it might not be shopping. It might be, doing a crazy ass workout, or maybe it's going to spend some, I know for me too, like I could go to a beach and just be at a beach for a bit, and just be by the water. Like that's something that would do it for me too. So it's like, it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be, anything crazy. It just has to, what lights you up, what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Go do that for an hour or two or whatever, however long you can. This has been so great. I have a couple final questions. These are kind of like one answer kind of things. And then I'll let you get back to your day, but this has been so good. So I want to ask you, what is one book that has changed you? We talked a lot about importance of personal development, how that's a part of the puzzle here in network marketing. So what is one book, or the first book that comes to mind that you're like, oh yeah, it's that one?
Yeah, probably a pretty cliche answer right now, but I was really touched by Rachel Hollis's Girl Wash Your Face.
Oh, yes.
Simply, and I know that, she's the buzzword and everything right now, but I think what was so important about her messages is how much of everything that we want to provide or do in our life really starts with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the lies that we tell ourselves, and the ability to really it starts here.
Yeah.
And I think that that's relevant whether you're just looking at starting your business or whether you've been in for a while and that next level is out there, and you're maybe falling prey to some of those self-sabotaging behaviors. That one kind of ties back into the Big Leap. That was a big one for me too. Okay, like I see why I do some of these patterns or behaviors. It's because I know that next thing that I'm pushing off is there, and I've hit this lid, and I'm going to go back to my old patterns that keep me smaller.
Okay. Yeah.
So I really resonate with anything that's about like it beginning with you, right? Like
yeah.
Get all these tidbits and things, whether it's like a new way to speak in your business or a new way to rise up, but it always comes back to what we're willing to own.
Yeah.
And the awareness of where we're shining and where we're playing a little small.
Yeah, I love that. The War of Art's really good for that too. It's all about resistance and how resistance tries to keep us safe and in our space. But it's another.
What was that one? The War of Art?
It's called The War of Art. It's my absolute favorite book. I talk about it all the time, but it's entertaining because he's kind of funny, but it's all about resistance. And anytime you're stretching yourself and doing something new and trying to grow, resistance is going to show up. It's going to do whatever it can to stop you. But he teaches you how to recognize it and how to deal with it and how to push through it. So
perfect. I'm totally gonna look
that
that
good one. You can add that to your list.
Use another Audible credit. So
yeah, I know, right? Audible is the best thing ever. Awesome. And so one last question for you, like if you had to leave everybody with just, one tip, one thing to help, that person who's sitting there, like just struggling, going, I really want this, but it's just, I just can't seem to make it work, or it hasn't connected yet, or whatever. Like what would be something you could say to help keep that person, that girl, that just to keep moving?
Yeah. I think first of all, if you've ended up in this opportunity in any way, shape, or form, it's because deep down you really do believe in helping other people. And if you can just like set aside the stress of like a rank or hitting a goal or having to lead people, and really know that you just being visible with living your best life is ultimately what people are attracted to, right? We all follow and grab our inspiration from the people that are visible with their daily lifestyle and their daily learnings. So that's like the one place that you start, is just taking your company's products that you were attracted to, again, for a reason, and just be visible with how they're making a change in your life. The business comes out of that, right? Like, we have to be visible with how we're growing, right? So if you can, I guess I'm gonna just keep repeating the same.
But that's so good. That's so good, because a lot of times people get all, caught up in I gotta ask 30 people today, and I gotta do this and I gotta do that. And it's like, just, if you can just chillax and like, just be present, show up, be authentic, be you, and let the world know what you're doing, your tribe will come. They will eventually find you, and if you're feeling like you don't know what to do you. What is that? Do you, boo? Do you, boo? And just be real and authentic. It's so funny because I did that the other day. I had an order come in of stuff that we order all the time for my family. And so the box was there, and I was like, I'm going to go on Instagram and I'm just going to like unbox my stuff and just talk to people about what we order in our house and why we love it. And it got such a great response, and it was fun for me to do. And it was real. I was like, yeah, this is something we use every day in our house, and here's why. And, here's what and it was just fun. And so just have fun with it, at the same time. So literally living your products in the most authentic way, right? Because those products came to you because you had a need in your life, and it is the base of your business, right? So your tribe and your future customers just need to have that trust with you, that you believe so deeply in them that you're willing to just teach people how you use them and how they're helping you. And then all the rest of that stuff is useless if you don't have that community of people that believe in you. Oh, that's amazing. And that is such a great way to close out our chat, because it's so true. And it's just so easy to do. It's just do you, be authentic, share the world. Now, if our listeners want to find you, where are you hiding out on the socials? You're on Instagram.
My favorite place is Instagram, just at Susan Bursic. Then I do a lot of my educating in my own Facebook group. So if anybody, is wanting to be a part of that, they can reach out. But Instagram's my jam. That's where I love to get my inspiration and love to show up as myself as well. So
that's where you do you, boo. I love it. Okay. And I'll make sure that all gets in the show notes and stuff. Susan, this has been so great. It's been so inspiring. We've been chatting for an hour. I feel like I've known you forever. It's been wonderful. And we'll have to make sure we connect, do some lunch or something someday soon too.
I would love that. Thank you for creating this space for women to come together and men and share their stories and journeys. That's how I get so much out of my learning, is just hearing the stories, right? Yeah. So you create a beautiful space for that to happen.
We keep it real here. It's just, hey, this is how it works. Because like you said, we said this at the beginning of the call, is that sometimes people feel alone in their journeys. It's like, am I the only one suffering from this? Am I the only one going through this? It's like, oh no, honey, we all go through that, and it's like, all of a sudden you're like, okay. So if everybody does this, then I can keep going, so it's what it's for. And I'm just happy to be able to share you with the community. So thank you guys so much. Thank you everybody for listening. Make sure you go follow Susan on Instagram. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Awesome.